I swear to you, I never thought the first month in my very first home would end with a woman in handcuffs being shoved into the back of a squad car right in front of my neighbors. But that's exactly how it went down. And the craziest part is, it wasn't a burglar. It wasn't some random stranger. It was the president of my homeowners association, a woman I barely knew, who swore up and down that I was trespassing on my own property. See, I'd spent years saving up for this place. I lived out of tiny apartments, eating ramen, skipping vacations, putting every extra dollar into a down payment fund. And when I finally signed those papers, man, I felt like I'd conquered the world. The house wasn't anything huge or fancy, just a 3-bedroom in a tidy neighborhood outside of Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where lawns all look the same length and kids ride bikes in circles on summer evenings. Honestly, it was exactly what I'd been dreaming of. I was ready for peace, a slower rhythm, maybe grilling in the backyard on weekends. What I wasn't ready for was Denise Harper, 40-something, always in pastel sweaters, hair sprayed so stiff it looked like a helmet. On day 2, she showed up at my front door with a binder the size of a phone book. "Welcome to Willow Creek," she said with this smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm the president of the HOA. These are the community guidelines." I flipped through it, half listening as she rattled off rules about trash bins, lawn height, and street parking. Honestly, it all seemed normal. I thanked her, told her I'd review it, and figured that was the end of it. But 3 days later, while I was dragging a couch off a U-Haul, she materialized again, tapping her wristwatch. "Deliveries are only allowed between 9 and 5, she snapped. I pointed at my phone. It was 4:30 on a Friday. She sniffed, muttered something about new people not understanding how things work around here, and walked off. That was the first red flag. But I let it go. I thought maybe she was just uptight. It didn't stop there. Notes appeared on my door. About my grass being a 1/4 inch too long. A complaint about the color of my garden hose. It was green, by the way, like every other hose in America. Then she banged on my door at 8 in the morning to scold me because I'd left my porch. "Light on overnight. Section 12, paragraph 4, she quoted, like she had the HOA handbook memorized. I kept my cool, smiled politely, and made small adjustments where it was reasonable. But inside I was thinking, what is this woman's deal? And then it got weird. One afternoon she told me I knew the Martins very well. They never mentioned selling to someone like you. The way she said someone like you made my stomach drop. I told her straight up, I bought the house, fair and square, through all the proper channels. She folded her arms, smirked, and said, "That's impossible. Show me your lease agreement." "Lease agreement?" "Lady, I own the place." When I told her that, she scoffed so loudly I thought the neighbors would hear. "The Martins would have told me if they were selling. I think you're lying." And with that, she spun around and stormed off. From there, things escalated fast. I'd catch her peering over my fence while I grilled burgers. She started snapping photos of me collecting my mail, like I was some criminal. Twice I caught her, rummaging through my garbage bins. When I confronted her, she lifted her chin and said, "I'm performing an HOA inspection. I have every right." I knew she didn't, but what could I do? I tried to ignore it, until one evening I found a letter slipped under my door, stamped with the HOA letterhead, citing me for unauthorized occupancy. I called the number, reached another board member, and the guy sounded shocked. "That's not from us," he said. "Denise must have sent that herself. We'll deal with it." I thought maybe that would shut her down. Boy, was I wrong. The next week I had to fly out for a 3-day work trip. I locked up carefully, asked my neighbor Paul to grab my mail, and left. When I came back late Sunday night, all I wanted was my bed. But my key didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. My stomach dropped. Somebody had changed the locks. And taped to the front door was a paper that read, "Property under HOA custody. Owner's spouse has reclaimed residence." My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Luckily, I had a spare key hidden out back. I got in through the patio door, flipped on the lights, and everything inside was untouched. But I couldn't sleep that night. I called the non-emergency police line. They told me to document everything and file a report in the morning. Next day, I'm making coffee when I hear my front door rattling. I look through the peephole, and there she is, Denise, standing there with a shiny new key, trying to let herself in like she owned the place. I yanked the door open so fast she jumped and dropped the key. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Her face went white for a second, then flushed red. "How did you get in here? This property is under HOA management. You're trespassing," I laughed. "This is my house. You broke the law changing those locks, and now you're trying to enter without permission? That's breaking and entering." She jabbed her finger at me. "You're the one breaking and entering. The Martins still own this house. I spoke to Mrs. Martin just last week. You're a squatter, and I'm calling the police." She whipped out her phone and dialed 911 right there on my porch. "There's an intruder in my friend's house," she cried, her voice all shaky and fake. "He's threatening me. I'm scared for my life." Then she gave them my address and hung up with this smug little smirk, like she'd already won. I just stood there, hands on my hips, seething. "You're making a huge mistake," I said quietly. She sneered. "We'll see about that." Within minutes, 2 squad cars rolled up. Denise threw herself into character, pointing at me like I was some criminal mastermind. "That's him! He broke in! I'm the owner's wife!" The officer turned to me, clearly confused. "Sir, do you have any identification?" I kept calm. I pulled out my license, the deed, and my closing papers from the office, handed them over. "All legit," I said. The officer scanned them, frowned, and said, "According to this, you purchased the property 5 weeks ago." Denise's confidence cracked, but she doubled down. "Those are forgeries. I spoke to Mrs. Martin last week." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, I need to see your identification." She hesitated, then finally pulled out her license. He read it, looked back up. "Mrs. Harper, your address is 3 blocks away. You're not related to the Martins, are you?" She stammered. "Well, no, but we're close friends." "They would have told me if they sold." The officer's face hardened. "There's no mistake. This man is the legal owner. Now, how did you get access to his house?" She shifted, fidgeted, finally admitted. "They gave me a spare key years ago, and as HOA president, I have responsibilities, so I had the locks changed." The officer held up the key she'd dropped. "You had no right to do that. Mrs. Harper, turn around and place your hands behind your back." Her eyes widened. "What? You can't be serious." But he was dead serious. "You're under arrest for criminal trespassing, attempted unlawful entry, and filing a false police report." He read her rights as the cuffs clicked shut. Neighbors had come outside by then, some in pajamas, whispering to each other. I saw more than a few relieved smirks. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she'd been tormenting all these years. Later, I learned the full story. Denise had bullied the whole neighborhood for years, nitpicking every little thing, sending threats, abusing her HOA title. Nobody had ever pushed back. She used that forgotten spare key from the Martins, hired a locksmith by pretending she'd lost her own keys, and thought she could bluff her way into taking my house. This time, the law didn't play along. At her arraignment, bail was set at 20 grand. She faced up to 2 years in prison and over 10,000 in fines. The judge slapped her with a no-contact order, and I finally slept peacefully for the first time since moving in. Standing there on my porch that night, watching her being loaded into that cruiser, neighbors murmuring around me, it was surreal. Part of me was shaken. Part of me was furious, but honestly, part of me was relieved. Relieved that for once, someone like her finally had to face consequences. Now I tell this story not just because it's wild, but because it makes you think. How much power should one neighbor, one HOA president really have? When does community standards cross the line into harassment and abuse? And how would you react if you were in my shoes? Would you keep quiet and hope she went away, or fight back like I did and risk the chaos? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was the arrest fair or too harsh? Have you ever had to deal with a power-hungry neighbor or HOA nightmare? Let's talk about it, because I know I'm not the only one who's been through this. And hey, if you enjoyed this ride, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, because I've got more stories where this came from. So, what would you have done